to the RunRX podcast, where we talk about all things running. As many runners know, it's 90% mental. So join Coach Valerie and Coach Caroline as we go through the mental side of running. Welcome back to the RunRX podcast. Val and I are going to talk about something today that we see a lot. I call it cognitive dissonance, because what happens is you're reading a magazine, maybe it's a Runner's World or Women's Running or Running Times or whatever it is, and it says, you can run however you want. Feel free to be yourself, but watch where you've put your foot or whatever. It's what I call, it's like I used to yell at my mom, and I said this before, my mom and I had a great relationship, but I remember being a teenager and she would say, I love you, but I wish you wouldn't be so hard on yourself, or I wish, her but always discounted the I love you. And she never realized that. When I told her that, she was mortified. Right. She was like, oh my gosh, no, I love you. But my point is that when we hear these two things, that you just said I could run however I want, but
right.
Now you've totally discounted it. So we're running around as runners going, is there a right way to run, or is there not a right way to run? Is there a foot strike? Is there a reach? What am I supposed to do? So how is that affecting how we're running now, Valerie?
Well, here's the main thing is that there's not a standard of running, and there's a standard of every other movement. So this has always been a problem in running.
Well, let's correct that. We believe there is a standard of running. The vast majority of the running population believes there's not a standard.
There's not an accepted standard.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay. So when you have a standard, then you can have what's called deviations from a standard.
Right.
So for example, for a lot of people, you can't see me, but if you watch someone walk over to pick something up and they just bend over and pick it up without using their legs, most people have at least had some kind of understanding of, ooh, that's not how you pick something up.
Right. If you watch somebody go to lift a couch, right?
Yeah.
How many times has your father, mother, sister, brother said, lift with your legs, lift with your legs,
right.
Bend your knees.
So like almost every movement has what's called a standard, and then you're taught how to do that movement.
Right.
So in almost every movement, that's what's done. Swimming, we've done this. Like a lot of ings, right? Mm-hmm. Swimming, golfing, playing soccer. Almost every movement has a standard, except for running. You're just supposed to go run. Just go run. It's natural. Everyone runs. So what people do is they mimic. So when you're a little kid, you pretty much mimic your parents or your siblings, because that's who you're around. Then you go to school and you mimic what your friends are doing and your peers. So what we start doing is we start creating a movement of our own. And so all of a sudden, the way you run is honestly the way you've adapted your body into a movement. But I don't know if it's running. Because when we do gait analysis on people, we can help you see that. But the problem is that when I ask people what is running or how do you run, most people have no idea, right? They go for a run. They don't really know the action they're doing, right? So when I say, well, what is running? Tell me what running is to you. Most people say, running is my freedom. Running is my stress release. And I'm like, well, no, I get that. That's emotional. Physically, what is running? Almost everyone will say running is putting one foot in front of the other. But when you actually do that, guys, you would trip and fall over. That's how you walk on a tightrope. It's not what running is. So then all of a sudden they're like, oh. And then it's kind of a stuck, right? Because if I said to you, well, show me what a squat is, almost everyone could show me. Even if it wasn't perfect, you could at least have an idea. Or even a push-up or a sit-up, right? There's standards of these movements that we've all been taught, especially if you did any kind of PE. Jumping jacks, right? You know how to do that. So we've never been taught how to run. So the thought and the idea of learning how to run, first of all, there's a huge resistance with it. Right?
Right.
And then it's like, well, if I'm being told, run like you are, run like you, and then all of a sudden when you have a movement error or something's going on in your running, well, no one knows how to help you. Because since there's no accepted way of running, what do they give you instead? You get a stretch, maybe, right? So then all of a sudden they're like, oh, the reason that you're hurting yourself is because you have tight hips.
Yeah.
Well, so does every other runner ever. That's part of what makes people good runners.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden you're getting these physical limitations. So people are told, oh, well, you're not, your hips are tight, or oh, you have one leg that's higher than the other, or you have tight calves, or whatever these, I know your glutes aren't firing. There's a good one.
Yeah.
So we start to hear these things like, these are reasons why you're not running. And it's all like, to me, it's like the lazy way out.
Yeah.
Because, so what, I have tight hips. Why would I not run? You know, like, this is what you guys got to remember, is that running is a movement. And once you realize there's a way to move and a way to learn the movement, then when you have something that's going on in your running, then you check your movement.
Right. So in watching, you were talking about watching the Olympics.
All right. So, like, I just watched the Olympics, and I love, of course, as a runner, I watch all of it. But when you watch the marathon, our girl, that Molly Seidel, she won the bronze. And she's just so cute. Like, I hope if she's hearing this, I mean that in a really good way. Like, I would love to go running with her. Like, at the beginning of the run, throughout the whole race, you could tell she wanted to be there. She loves running. But as you watch her run, she's got a little, like, circle movement she does with her arm. And that's what makes her her. Like, it's her thing. I don't know why she does it. She probably doesn't know why she does it. It's something that she's patterned into her movement. It doesn't, she just won the bronze in the Olympics,
Yeah.
so she's running pretty well.
Yeah, so she's doing good for herself.
Yeah. So everyone has, this is what I tell people, you do have movements that make you you.
Right.
And none of us want to take that away from you. Meaning, I wouldn't say to her, you shouldn't do that in your running. It's just,
Right.
you know, what she does in her running. She's also running correctly because we can see in her movement is running. And when you watch the marathoners as a group, the ones in the front, or in the Olympics, they're all pretty good, obviously, they all look very similar.
Yeah.
If you watch the sprinters, they all look very similar. Watch, the movement patterns are almost identical in all of these runners that don't train together. They're all competitors, yet how come they all have the same movement? Yet if you go to any 5K to marathon, whatever distance, and with not watching the elites, watch the age groupers, how come we all look totally different?
Yeah.
You know, some people are shuffling, some people are
Smacking the ground.
Yeah, there's just all kinds of things going on. Why are we not kind of demanding as runners? I would prefer to have a higher standard of movement for myself.
Right.
And don't tell me it's because I have tight hips.
Yeah.
The reason that we don't all follow the same movement standard is because we're not getting coached in how to move.
Yeah. So that's really what it comes down to, guys, is that you can run you can have your little
Sure.
issues.
Be
can
you.
Yeah, you can be you, but be you within the standard of movement.
Right. Be you with correct movement.
Right.
It's so much more fun to run, guys, when you run with a standard, when you're understanding what running is and what I'm supposed to be doing while I'm running.
Right.
You know, think about it. If you guys took, like, what's so popular right now? Online cycling. Oh my gosh. It's like the rave of whatever. And when people get their bikes, the first thing they do is figure out how to sit on it correctly, how to pedal.
Right.
Right? Someone shows them, I hope, how to actually ride the bike. And no one questions it. They're like, I know, I'm hopefully learning how to ride this bike. Or like you said earlier, if I decide to do a triathlon and I've never swum, I'm probably going to do a swim lesson. So it's the same with running. There's a movement standard. And everyone following the movement standard means when you're doing something that's off the standard,
Yeah.
then you can correct it.
Right. Now, I'm going to throw something out there, guys, that if you are listening to the podcast, if you're following Valerie and you're starting to think like, oh, she kind of makes some sense here, you know, because that's, when she started talking to me, it made absolute perfect sense. It just, wow, that's logical, okay?
Right.
So if you're starting to feel that way, it's okay to question what
Right.
your track coach told you. And the
Right.
reason I'm saying that is because she just made the comment about, like, I got a Peloton, right? I was one of those people that got a Peloton it was before the pandemic, but I was so glad I had it
Right.
during the pandemic. But I will tell you, though, that the person that set me up on the bike actually didn't set me up right. She had me bending my knee. It was way too much. So when I started riding, I felt, after she left, this was after about a week, I started feeling like I was riding a tricycle. And so I moved it. I moved my seat. I adjusted it to where I knew that my knee would still be bent. I didn't feel like I was over flexing, and I felt comfortable. So I challenged her, right? I didn't say, well, she set me up that way, so this is obviously the way it needs to be. So there's a fine line. And when people do come into the membership, they don't challenge Valerie, but they do question her. Like, I was always told, high knees, Valerie, why not high knees? Or I was always told that I need to run 20 miles, Valerie, on my running plan. I've always done that, and I haven't been injured. I got injured because my dogs pulled me wrong, right? So we're not saying just blindly follow follow what she's saying, but we are confident in what she's saying, and there's a reason behind it, that if you have a question, ask us.
Right.
Send in to support@runrx.fit your questions. Get on one of her lives. She does them every Wednesday at 10:30 on Facebook. You can come on there and ask her a question. You can go to our website and send us an email saying, hey, I've got a question. Let us know, because we will answer it. There is probably a method to the madness. We just haven't talked about it on the podcast yet. And so we'd love to answer you. And if you're truly inquisitive and want to learn, then nobody gets offended or feels like you're challenging.
Absolutely not.
Right.
We love it.
Yeah. So we hope to see you on the next one. Talk to you.
Thank you for joining us on the RunRX podcast. If you'd like to know more, join us at www.runrx.fit. And if you have additional questions that you'd like answered on the podcast, email us at support@runrx.fit.